Being that it's after 7 and we have a quorum, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so welcome everyone to the September meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. Roll call, please.
Cody.
Here.
Squattrino.
Here.
Milky.
Here.
Fuller is here. Aaron.
Here.
Shingles.
Here.
Buckley.
Here.
Webster. About.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So our last regular meeting was August 20th, and you have the minutes from the August 20th meeting in your packet. Are there any corrections to the August 20th minutes?
And there was a lot on here.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Let me just ask real quickly, because I'm forgetting. It reports that we approved minutes from June 18th. Did we not meet in July? Because wouldn't we have been approving July's minutes?
Good question.
16th. Yeah, I actually remember, I was gone in the July when I was on vacation, and I remember going through the minutes going, well, I don't know if the motions are accurate. So I think we did.
Okay, so let's substitute July, somebody said the 16th? July 16th for June 18th.
Good catch.
Otherwise, I didn't see anything. Anything else? If not, we can have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion was by LaBelle, second by Milky. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we have our minutes. Correspondence, board reports, presentations. Peter's at the computer, so board reports, anything from Board of Trustees? Nope,
Next meeting, yeah.
okay. Anything from Zoning Board of Appeals?
Nothing on our agenda last month?
Okay. And Denise is not here, so we don't have sidewalk and pathways, so we'll pass on that. Any other reports people have? Any correspondence not related to tonight's agenda? Okay, so we'll move on from that. So approval of the agenda, we have two business items, a new business item, and then other business is continuation of the discussion of the new zoning ordinance draft. Anything else for the agenda? If not, a motion to approve the agenda is in order.
Second.
So motion was by Fuller, second by Shingles to approve the agenda as prepared. Further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have our agenda. So we are ready to move on. Oh, I take that back. We're about to move on to new business. At this point in the meeting, we have public comment. This portion of the public comment is for items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anyone's here for the public hearing, that will take place separately, and there'll be an extended public comment towards the end of the meeting. But this, at this time, is for items not on tonight's agenda. If there's anyone who would like to address the commission on any such item, they're invited to do so at this time. We just ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comment is open at 7:06. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that back up. So now we'll move on to our new business item. Business item is a public hearing on a special use permit, 2019-06, for a filling station proposed to be located at the intersection of Isabella and Broomfield. Peter, are you ready to introduce it, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have the item up on the overhead there for everyone to see here in a bit. So tonight we have a public hearing that was advertised and noticed. Owners within 300 feet were sent notification of tonight's public hearing. That'll be held Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. This is requested by Grayling Investors LLC, authorized by owner McGarry, Robert E. Motts, James, and Amy. The special use is for a filling station on a parcel that is zoned both B4 and B5 district. That's a general business district and a highway business district zoning. Located at South Isabella Road, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, 48858. Parcel ID, it's currently vacant, 14-026-20-001-06. The project includes not just a gas station, but a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts restaurant, but that is a permitted use. The special use is for the filling station, commonly known as a gas station, in the district. Giving you a memo, tonight we will be going through sections 30.3 and other sections pertinent that we'll be going over for the special use. Tonight we do have, just for conceptual, what I'll refer to as a preliminary site plan, but it's not a preliminary site plan that we'll be reviewing. The final site plan is not ready. That site plan will be presented at next month's meeting, hopefully. And so tonight we're just considering the use, but you do have provided what I'll refer to again as the preliminary site plan to give you a conceptual idea of what the project looks like. I've made a recommendation to you guys to approve on the condition that state license is granted for the project and that a site plan is reviewed and approved. The applicant is here tonight to speak and answer any questions you may have. But that's my introduction for you tonight.
Okay, thank you. So we'll do the public hearing first. This is the opportunity for members of the general public to address the Planning Commission on this project. I'll just point out that the applicant will have full opportunity to speak on the project and to stand for questions after the public hearing, so it's not necessary for the applicant to speak during the public hearing. But so once again, if anyone would like to address the Planning Commission on this special use permit application, we just ask you to come to the podium, speak into the microphone, give us your name and address for the minutes, address your comments to the Planning Commission, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Once everyone who wants to speak has had an opportunity to speak, we'll consider recognizing people for additional comments. So the public hearing on special use permit application 2019-06 is open at 7:09. And we always wait a dignified period of time, give everyone a chance to speak, but it appears that there aren't any folks here specifically to participate in the public hearing. So if someone comes in 5 minutes from now and wants to speak, we'll give them that opportunity, but let the record show that there were no comments offered during the public hearing. Were there any written comments received? So no written comments were received either. So we'll close the public hearing for the time being, and we will now give the applicants an opportunity to present their project and stand for any questions.
Good evening. My name is Rich Jaskowski. I'm one of the members of Grayling Investors. I have Bill Carey with me today, who's a business partner as well, and I think some of you know Jim Angler, who is our realtor on the project. As indicated, we hope to establish a gas station, convenience store, Dunkin' Donuts store at Broomfield and Isabella. I do have some drawings and plans. I think some of these have already been provided to all of you through the assistance of Peter, and I would also like to thank him for, I've called him a lot and asked him a lot of questions, and he's been very receptive and helpful for all of that, so I appreciate that, Peter. I guess I would start by initially asking, if you guys have any questions about our project. We kind of laid out what the specifics are with regard to the preliminary site plan and the location and the drawings. All of these are somewhat preliminary at the time, but we believe it'll fit in well with that intersection. When we got here tonight, we were a little bit early and we went over there, and obviously there's some student housing that's nearby and already some commercial establishments, but we think it'll be a nice fit and be harmonious with the neighborhood there.
Okay, it's open for questions.
Is this anticipated to be 24-hour establishment?
We would let kind of the market dictate that. Obviously, the economics would kind of control that. If there seems to be a need or a desire by the public to have it available 24 hours, we would consider that. Most stations and stores of this nature, Dunkin' stores, aren't open 24 hours. They might stay open till 10 or 12, depending with the college town, they might stay a little bit later. They do try to open earlier because obviously, it's a big breakfast of major interest to breakfast people and coffee. So usually 4, 5, 6 a.m., we're open and the doors are open.
Other questions? So there'll be both the Dunkin' Donuts, but also kind of the general gas station type convenience store?
That's correct, and it is possible that there could even be another fast food franchise. The model that we have would allow actually for 2 food franchises to be there. The one we know we would put in is a Dunkin'. We would also have a convenience store. It's possible we would contemplate leasing the other space to a second additional, fast food franchise if there was interest there. The one drawing that we have, this is a store that is somewhat one of the designs. I don't want to say we're locked into the design, but we want to make sure, obviously, it's aesthetically pleasing to the area. And this is a Dunkin', drawings from a Dunkin' that is actually in existence right now. And it's kind of a rough idea of what we would have for kind of the exterior, if you will, of the building that we're talking about.
If you were to replace or if you were to add a second fast food outlet, would that replace the convenience shop, or would that be an
It would
addition?
not, yeah. The convenience store would still be there as part of the gas station, available for people to buy, drinks and food and things like that.
But it would be in the same footprint, though.
It would be correct, absolutely, yeah.
Turn that site plan towards us, because my packet didn't have a site plan.
So here's the site plan with the location of the building itself, square building there, and then 2 separate drive-throughs again to facilitate, if need be, the 2 fast food franchises there.
And do you have your curb cuts there? These curb cuts are the ones you're using, okay.
It should
All
be,
right,
relying on our engineer for that, but she's pretty good.
okay, yep.
So I do have the preliminary plan here on the board as well.
It's pretty preliminary at this point, but have you had any discussions at all with the road commission?
I have not reached out to the road commission yet on that. Obviously, if we move forward, we will certainly be doing that.
Our civil engineer from Traverse City has had some discussions with the road commission. She got some guidance from them without being locked in from the road commission as to the cuts that were shown there.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured they might want to keep the cuts away from the intersection as far as they can,
As far as
within
they
reason,
can,
yeah.
yep. And I'm looking at our master plan. This falls into the area that we characterize as a Broomfield Center, where we're kind of focusing on internal traffic patterns and pedestrian movement and, So I can imagine we're gonna wanna see pathways and pedestrian movement and sidewalks throughout in this area.
This is actually a priority sidewalk area.
Yeah, priority sidewalk.
And that's what we expected, and again, Peter, to his credit, mentioned that, I think, in my first comment with him, obviously, we would comply with that.
When we were at the site this evening, there was actually 3 or 4 pedestrians walking along
Right
the
along the
shoulder
road.
right there.
Yeah, there's
And I
quite a
thought,
path.
All right, you guys go ahead and take your chances there. Sidewalks would be a must, I would think.
We do have, if you're interested, again, it's preliminary, but it's kind of a drawing of what the interior area would look like for the 2 franchises plus the convenience store. But again, if you guys have any interest in that as well.
I do get concerned about where the curb cuts are from how busy that corner is and people, especially on the north side, people trying to escape to get into the college or get into work and how much it backs up there at the busy times. Just going back to our questions.
Well, hopefully the road commission addresses that with the site plan as we move forward.
I agree that it's road commission, but we also talk about it as, is it gonna cause problems here? And I think we ought to bring it to their attention and I'm sure they're looking at how busy those corners can be.
Sure, you know, it's a
Peak
double-edged
days.
sword, right? You don't want a
It is.
non-busy corner to put a business on.
That is exactly right. But you also want to be able to move
But you
people
want it-
in and out.
Right, you
No.
want
Yeah.
it safe.
Safely.
No question.
Safely.
Yeah.
Presumably, being a gas station, you'll have a liquor license?
At a minimum, I believe it would be an SDM beer and wine license from there, yes, correct.
Okay. Well, we have our laundry list to go through, but other questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you. Are we ready to start going through the list? Okay, so let me turn to it here. Peter conveniently included it in the packets. We actually have two sections, the normal section for all special uses, and then we also have the, which is in 30.3, and then there's a separate section for filling stations, which we'll also go through. So I will read it, and I invite comments from the commissioners, one way or, either way. The special use shall be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner harmonious with the character of adjacent property and the surrounding area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly businesses and high-density residential.
Right.
Any other opinions? Okay. Number 2, the special use shall not change the essential character of the surrounding area.
It might, but I don't think it's not as, it's as intended, right?
It's another positive.
Right.
Right. To the positive.
Yeah. It's consistent
Yeah.
with our master plan.
Okay. The special use shall not interfere with the general enjoyment of adjacent property.
Might increase the enjoyment.
Might cause them to gain some weight if they make too many trips
Yeah.
over to the Dunkin' Donuts. Special use shall not be hazardous to adjacent property or involve uses, activities, materials, or equipment that will be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of persons or property through the excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke, odor, fumes, or glare.
I think potentially foot traffic trying to get there, so, this is where the road commission comes in, I guess, but just like they were saying, there's gonna be people like anywhere that are gonna try and cross there. You're not gonna put a walkway over the road, but,
Right.
it's the safety of the corner that they haven't had anything like this out there. It's gonna be a big change.
Yeah, it's definitely a consideration. You've got all these, presumably they would walk, or many of them would walk.
Well, I would think, you have Cottage Inn Pizza there, there's a liquor store there as well. Serving similar, maybe demographics.
Yeah, maybe, yeah,
Just kitty corner, that's a Michigan term, right?
sure. nothing that I think would stop the special use, so.
Okay, any other comments on 4? Number 5, the special use shall be adequately served by essential public facilities and services, or it shall be demonstrated that the person responsible for the proposed special use shall be able to continually provide adequate services and facilities deemed essential to the special use under consideration. The said facilities or services shall be approved by the Central Michigan Health Department. Presumably it'll have all its utilities and working bathrooms and all that good stuff. Anything else on 5? 6, when deemed necessary by the Township Board or Planning Commission, the use shall be adequately screened by distance and landscaping to protect the rights of all adjoining property.
So this does have a drive-through, right?
There's really not residences that are close.
No,
In Jamestown and
Dolphin Coin, Heritage Collision.
the multifamily to the south,
Yeah.
but I mean, they're all decent distance.
But they're showing the
And they have,
the canopies there, they're showing at the north end.
Right. The building is green canopy.
Building will screen the canopy, and then lights are pointed at an intersection.
Peter, that's a budding
So I mean,
R3 to the south, right?
Yeah, so the,
So there would be screening along that. South of there?
Yeah, that's stripped in there.
Okay, so B and R3.
A little bit on it.
this is the zoning.
Barely.
So this is the parcel that we're looking at, and this is the adjacent. You do have a little bit right there where it's R3A, where you have that apartment complex, but that's it.
I don't feel that additional screening would be
I
needed.
don't
on that.
either.
No.
No, other than what's the zoning requires already,
Right.
Okay.
which looks like pretty minimal.
Just out of curiosity, what sort of landscaping do you imagine, if any?
Yeah. We haven't worked really hard on that concept yet, but we didn't really think, given the existing character of the neighborhood, that creating a landscaping screen or barrier was essential, but we certainly want landscaping that makes our operations look attractive.
Mhm.
Right, and we're gonna build a fairly expensive property here, and I think finishing touch with nice landscaping is what we all have in mind, and I don't have a definite plan that I can offer you.
Mhm.
We'd be happy to take input from either the commission or planning on that issue. I know our civil engineer will work on that in the final site plan too.
Okay.
Being that your property abuts in R3A, that multifamily in that corner,
Yes,
so that the zoning then would require screening, but it's going to be for a very short distance.
right.
And does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and not only is it required, it's certainly a very reasonable request, even if it wasn't a requirement. But I think you'll see us invest much more in landscaping than just that corner there.
Yeah, I was just making sure you were clear that,
Yep,
at least per our zoning, unless there was a
Understood.
variance or something, right?
Understood.
Okay. So that's already required based on the way the code is written,
Yeah, well,
because it's
Business abuts
abutting the
residential.
residential, okay. But I'm not hearing that additional is necessary to be required. Anything else on 6? No. 7, The Township Board or Planning Commission, in connection with approval of any application, may require reasonable undertaking by the applicant to guarantee and assure by agreement, including a performance bond to be posted by the applicant or by some other reasonable surety arrangement at appropriate stages of the planned development, that the development will be executed in accordance with the approved plan. Are you good for it? All right.
We are, and we'll certainly comply with whatever requirements you guys
Our
have.
lender will have us right by the neck, so I don't think you have to worry about proper completion of the plan.
Okay.
They're a much stronger enforcement mechanism than zoning would be.
All right. Number 8, that such use will be an asset to the township.
Agree.
Okay. And then the last two are kind of procedural. Requirements and conditions of each individual special use permitted shall be complied with unless otherwise mentioned within this section. And then 10, any special use permit may be revoked by the Union Township Board upon recommendation of the Planning Commission whenever the operation fails to comply with any of the required conditions or may be subject to the penalties of this ordinance. And then the two reminders, approval of a special use permit shall be valid regardless of change of ownership, provided that all terms and conditions of the permit are met by any subsequent owner. And in instances where development authorized by the special use permit has not commenced within 1 year from the date of issuance, the permit may be reconsidered and/or voided at a regularly called meeting of the Planning Commission. So then we move on to 30.4, Section I, filling stations, special requirements for filling stations. Number 1, they are only located in Ag B4, B5, B6, or B7 districts. This is a combination of B4 and B5, so it meets that. The curb cuts for access to a filling station shall not be permitted at such locations that will tend to create traffic hazards in the streets immediately adjacent thereto. Entrances shall be no less than 25 feet from a street intersection measured from the road right-of-way or from adjacent residential districts. I assume that will be complied with. So, more of an enforcement sort of thing. Minimum lot area shall be 15,000 square feet and so arranged that ample space is available for motor vehicles that are required to wait. Filling stations that are intended solely for the sale of gasoline, oil, and minor accessories, having no facilities for repair or servicing of automobiles, including lubricating facilities, may be permitted on lots meeting the minimum lot area requirements of the district they are located in. So this has no repair or servicing facilities.
That's correct, yeah.
And I'm assuming it meets the lot requirements. And number 4, no principal or accessory building shall be closer than 50 feet from any abutting residentially zoned boundary line or in any event within 100 feet of any existing residential dwellings located on abutting property. So there, I guess there's that one corner where it touches an R3.
Right,
But not a building.
but not a
That's just the
building.
accessory
Right.
building.
At least as that shows it, right?
Right.
Well, the building is more than 50 feet from that.
Right.
Okay. Driveways and parking areas as specified in 30.4B2.
Again, the 34.B2, that's in page, it's not in your packet, but 30-4, it states, "All entrances and exits shall be designed in accordance with the Isabella County Road Commission's requirements. It is further required that A, all sites shall provide points of ingress and egress that are located upon a major thoroughfare or upon a public road. Local traffic movement shall be accommodated within the site, so the entering and exiting vehicles will make normal and uncomplicated movements into or out of the thoroughfare. B, all points of entrance or exit shall be located no closer than 200 feet from the intersection of any two streets or highways. C, all vehicles should have clear vision approaching a public street within 100 feet of the street for a sight distance of 500 feet in either direction along the street." And finally, D, where points of ingress and egress are located upon a major street or thoroughfare, deceleration lanes should be provided at points of ingress and egress.
Okay. Well, certainly they have to get approval from the road commission, so those things will get worked out. And then lastly, from this section, all lighting shall be shielded from adjacent districts. Now, obviously, a gas station is a bright entity, but I'm assuming down shielded and things of that nature. Okay. Any questions or comments from commissioners on this section? Okay. Well, if there's, well, we can have a motion at any time. We can have further discussion. We can have questions, whatever is your pleasure. This is a recommendation to the Township Board. And we would include in the motion the rationale.
I do have a comment for the applicant, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
We're working on new zoning right now, and part of that is implementing access management. And now that's not in effect now, but in fact, this is what we're going to be looking at tonight, is it may require a neighbor property, so I'm thinking to the south, that's B5, correct? That if they develop, they may need to tie their parking lot into yours to keep traffic off the main thoroughfare, which I think would help your business because it makes it easier to get to it. So just, as you're doing your site plan, I want you to think to the future a little bit, that that's a possibility.
Are you referring to the parcel to the south here, Brian?
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, reserved, yeah, because that is reserved, yeah, for future parking if this development requires.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
What about the parcel to the west?
To the west?
The
West.
collision center?
Yeah, the collision, but if we're trying, in the future, if we're trying to keep people, giving them a chance to drive on inner roads, would you also consider, not for necessarily that development, but if Jim was to sell it down the road to somebody who was developing it, would you future develop an internal drive also along east
Along
west?
Broomfield Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because in the master plan, it talks about, for this area here, it has highlighted, minimize access conflicts across municipal boundaries. So you have the city across the street and us here. Yeah, we definitely would want to see an encouragement of, cross-access along Broomfield Road and along Isabella Road, if that's, feasible or possible, to keep his.
Detention pond south of the
Yeah.
parcel. So the apartment complex detention pond sits right in that corner,
Yeah.
right where that black box is.
Tough to put a parking lot in there then.
Yeah. If you wouldn't be able to cross
Yeah.
that through there. So that's a stormwater storage for the apartments.
Is the parcel you would be building on is a rectangle, and then you've got, remind me again, is it B4 at the top and then B5, or vice
Correct.
versa?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this part of it gonna occupy both of those, or just the top one?
It's hard for me to tell where that line comes through separating B4 and B5. I don't know if it's right in the middle of it, but I'm trying to look at find the right drawing.
I guess what I'm really asking is there gonna be room for another business directly to the south on the same lot?
You know, we don't have plans to put another business there. You know, if I'm just guessing, if that line is approximately in the middle, it
Okay.
probably is, you know, part of our parking to the south would be in the B5,
Okay.
you know, area.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, if we were going to do something like that, it would be likely that we'd have to come to the township for a lot split. And then you could condition, the township could condition lot split approval on some sort of mutually shared access at that time.
Yeah.
That would make, I think, probably the most sense.
Fair.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Looks like a nice project.
Yeah, it does look pretty nice.
Okay, well, again, we can have a motion at any time.
Motion to approve SUP 2019-06 and the condition that they receive all county, state, and federal approvals required for the filling station.
There's a recommendation to the board, right?
Yes, that we're.
Yes, I'm
we're
sorry.
Voting
Motion
to recommend the
Motion to recommend to
project to the
approve,
board.
yes.
Support.
So the motion was made by Buckley and the support was by Darren. I'm assuming we would say that we feel that it's harmonious with the surrounding area or
An asset.
an asset to the,
surrounding area.
an asset to the surrounding area and,
I think it applies, yeah.
General requirements and special use.
Yeah, I heard no reservations from anybody on any points.
okay.
Right, what was the condition, receive all?
Just
county and state?
receive, we didn't talk about, the state and federal regulations regarding filling stations, but just on the condition that they receive all approvals, county, state, and federal.
Okay, so the motion is to recommend favorably the project to the township board. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. So, next step will be township board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point, we'll move on to our other business item. So on September 5th, we met and slogged our way through Section 6 and, well, actually finished Section 6 and got through Section 7 and then really burned the midnight or 9 o'clock oil and got through Section 8. So we're at Section 9. Section 9 begins, well, it's actually page 93 of the numbered pages, parking, loading, and access management.
I got an extra one.
So essentially what we've been doing is what we've been doing all along, which is kind of going through each section, and if someone has a comment, they give it. If not, we move on to the next section. So are there any section, or comments on section 9.1, off-street parking requirements? If not, then that's a long section. A lot of technical stuff. Section 9.2, loading space requirements.
Gotta go back to 9-3 here where it says storage and repair.
What page?
9-3.
Yeah, and I got something there too.
I
Yeah,
have different page numbers.
Different page,
What's the actual?
that's part of 8. And then
Yeah.
let's see,
9B.
General requirements, B7.
And I have something on 6.
Yeah, you're too far.
Control of off-site parking, is that right?
Yeah.
There we go.
So, do you have something on, let's take them in order. Do you have something on cross-access? Is that
Yeah,
the-
I just had a question on this, and this is what I was referring to on that SUP. I like this, because later in the document, we talk more about, this cross-access and access management. And what I was confused by, or maybe wasn't clear to me, is, I'm going to try to put it in my own words and tell me if this is how you interpret it, that if I'm putting in, let's use this Dunkin' Donuts as an example, right? That I have to put in the access because there's an anticipated that there will be a parking lot to the south in the near future or potential future, right? And I'm assuming if you do that, you're talking about like curb cuts in the parking lot that, with a drive that goes to nowhere, is that what it's defining? And if so, how far do you go, right? Because if you're going, you don't want to go right to the property line. So now, ultimately, in the future, when that parcel to the south gets developed, who's paying for that connection? Because I'm assuming in that case, Dunkin' Donuts would have at least probably 10 feet to finish up. They got to do it at that time. Do it. Is my question clear?
Well, I would say with our Campus Commons project down here where Chipotle is, we just had we had curb and everything in there. It wasn't a curb cut, it was curb with landscaping and everything, so there was no cross-access, but there was one on the plan. So when McDonald's went to redo their project and remodel their site, they had to put in that.
Okay, so it has to be on the plan, but you don't have
No,
to.
that was in the
Right,
city,
Right.
so.
But then you had to implement it at that point when.
Yeah, which, all they had to
When
do
they-
was get authorization from us, which the city had already
Okay.
required us when we got our project approved. That was, it wasn't already cut in, they had to go in and cut it in.
Right. But in that example, the first property would have to incur the cost at that time to make that connection, right? Because it's part of your original plan, you just didn't implement that until there was a need.
Yeah, I mean, we
Right.
showed it on our site plan, future cross-access.
Okay. Yep,
But
that makes sense.
therefore, it wouldn't be cut like an open.
Right.
It would just be curb, just whatever it would be. But in this case, it's just vacant land. So
Right,
there'd be nothing
right.
there anyway.
And we had this in Bluegrass, too. We had a development where they, what's that? Goodwill, right. Yeah, where they just ended the road 5 feet or 10 feet shy of the property line. And there was no curbs or anything except on the sides. That's why so that was done differently than what you had to do.
Well, I mean, the landscape and everything is right on the lot line, so, I mean, when they had to come in,
Right.
they had to come
Rip
on
it
our
out.
property and put it all in.
That whole gap was like 5 feet though, right? From one parking lot to the next.
Yeah, that's probably right, maybe 10. I mean, it wasn't much.
But
So
we
the-
take sidewalks right to the property line. I see your point, because I don't think it was answered.
I didn't know,
How you leave it.
who
you're
pays
gonna-
for the connection?
You're gonna incur the cost to get to that property line.
The property line.
At the mercy of whoever develops next to you.
And I just didn't know if that needed to be clarified here, or is it clear enough? Because I think you're right. We would require that cross-access on the plan, even if you didn't implement it at that time, right?
I mean, I don't know how.
mean, that makes perfect
I would
sense.
just show it on there as a future
Right.
cross-access, and that would be part of the site plan approval, showing the cross-access, future
Yep.
cross-access.
And.
So does that mean when-
The cost would be incurred by the property owner if the site next to them was to be developed, right? If they had to make that connection.
It kinda says
By
that.
which property owner?
Say that reserve
Well, that's what-
connection when no adjacent parking lot exists, but can be used immediately expected to be constructed at a future date. So there's no parking lot to the south.
So is that clear enough,
Does
right?
that state that if a parking lot comes to the south and they meet their property line,
You got to connect.
Is that clear enough?
It's not really clear.
It's not clear, not if we're
The
saying,
intent is, but
so it
Well,
sounds like we
and
need to clear it up.
Having said that, I mean, there's a section on this later, right? On access management. But when I read this by itself before I got to the other stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of gray to me.
Well, the whole thing is predicated by wherever feasible, which is itself kind of a set of weasel words, right?
I don't think, we as commissioners want to get into saying who's got to pay for what. I mean, I don't think we do that. I think it needs to be done, so you guys need to work it out.
So do we say develop it to your line? Or do we go with this wording and say,
But-
you show it on the plan, and if the property neighbor gets developed, you have
You
to
gotta,
construct
Yeah,
it.
somebody's gonna have to, but in this case, you're not gonna put that in, because right now, the way the site plan showed me, look at all that vacant land to the south. I mean, you're not gonna put in a road going all the way over there for future access.
no, but their drive comes
No.
here, and I would just show on the plan that I would continue that road to the south, right?
So it's at our,
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Then you wouldn't implement it now, but you would show that
Yeah,
we'll
you-
connect it
You
if
could
we need
show
to.
an opening there, but,
Right.
I mean, on the plan, but not an actual opening. Now, you know, who pays for the rest of that? I mean, probably whoever's putting the rest in, whoever's making the connection. Unless the two property owners can come to an agreement that, hey, it's gonna cost this much for the section, so that guy pays for that section.
I think what we're saying though is you have to show us on your, in the future, you have to show us on your site plan how you're doing the interconnection, right?
Right.
We're not gonna make you construct it at this point, but as soon as somebody pulls the trigger next to you, you're gonna have to implement your plan that we approved.
So basically what we're saying though is that whoever builds first essentially gets to say where the management access is.
Yeah.
Because if they put it on their plan, that's what we hold them to, so somebody else has to develop a plan that comes to that.
Yeah, unless the two came together and came up with Plan B.
Yeah.
And the planning
Proposed
commission said,
it.
great, we'll
Yeah.
sign off on that.
But when we're looking at site plans, are we gonna have Pete have that document right there to say, well, here's what we approved on this site plan, see how it matches up, and, or are you pulling that out before they come to us and saying, all right, here's how they showed their site plan in the connection?
Yeah, we'd have the existing, whoever goes first, we'd have their site plan, and so if you had your neighbor developing, we'd have that site plan for them to look at and see where their location is, and if it works for them, that's, where they'd have to put it. And and then if I'm hearing you guys correctly, is, at that time, when the neighbor develops, the first one would then have to open up their property and, develop it at that time, so.
That's the way I read it.
If that waits, 10 years, 10 years later, you have to open it up.
Just like sidewalks.
Yeah, it's kind of like the sidewalk. Showing on the plan, but it, not necessarily has to be built right away.
Is this in all districts then? Are we doing 4, 5, 6, and 7?
The access management, later talks about specific districts, it doesn't say.
Because,
all.
yeah, this
But
part
here's-
right here just says it's encouraged, so.
Okay, so are we good on that, just a little section on
thank you.
cross-access? And then you had something on,
Well,
is
it
it
says
still?
storage and merchandise, sale of motor vehicles, storage
Yep.
of inoperable vehicles, repair vehicles are prohibited, and off-street parking. That seems, you can't sell your car in your off-street parking spot. You can't repair your vehicle.
Except an emergency, right?
So, I mean, if I own the property, I wanna sell my car, I can't put my own car out there?
That's what I'm wondering, I can't fix.
Yeah, that's what it's, that's.
I mean,
Well, I think the
saying.
intent is to say you can't treat it like a car lot. Not that you
Yes.
couldn't sell an occasional vehicle.
Right, let me see, let me read that again.
No, I understand. It
Storage.
it doesn't sound clear.
Storage and repair prohibited, sale of motor vehicles, so that's basically saying I can't even sell my own car. Unless
Don't-
they're referring to multiple cars.
Right.
Plural, but.
Well, if I got two cars I'm
This month,
selling,
one next month, I don't know.
well, if I got two that I'm selling
I
right
don't know.
now,
But don't we have a limit?
Can we say retail sales of motor vehicles?
that would be more appropriate, I would think.
Well, it's still,
I think
Retail
maybe
sale.
what my suggestion is, you kind of leave it the way it is, but we add some kind of language that says it's not allowed unless that area has been designated, for sales. So, we'll have projects that come in and they'll have a designated area of where they're gonna have sales at. And so if it's in those areas, it's permitted, but, that way you're not, that way it's kind of relegated to just that one section, then, just randomly putting, vehicles for sale and, parking spots, but.
Because doesn't this apply to all districts, though?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, you'd have a heck of a time running through the township and enforcing vehicles. all
Yeah.
over the township.
So you can start.
Yeah, I mean, you go down this road, the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we write something that's not enforceable? And I don't think
Right.
I want to prohibit anybody in the township from selling their vehicle or repairing their own vehicle in their yard.
Right. Yeah, it almost seems like this is more of like for the major business corridors that you don't want it to turn into a junkyard, right?
Well, I mean, as far as like the repairs go, I mean, in our current ordinance, which I think
Yeah.
would be carried over in our new ordinance, is the idea of any kind of repair would have to be within doors. We don't want to have people on the front yard repairing stuff in the open. We want it, enclosed repairs, but
My house?
not your house. Referring to, like business districts where the
Right, but if you
repairs
have
are-
a tenant at a apartment complex who wants to put their own alternator in their vehicle, they can't do it in the parking lot?
Yeah. You're gonna take 2 hours in their parking lot, in their
I
driveway.
think, to me, I think this is, now it says storage and repair, but I mean, to me, I think this is intended towards the commercial purpose, commercial uses of such. Somehow it seems like we could just, make a distinction between, retail or commercial repair and sale of vehicles versus occasional. Do we have any restrictions for how frequently somebody can sell at a residence?
Nope.
Somebody can sell, they can turn a car over every week in front of their yard if they want to, or every day if they want to.
It's something that it basically comes by complaining. I've gotten calls before, and it becomes, how many cars? Is it, nonstop? Is this something where you have one car, a few months later another car, or is this, becoming a all year long? There's cars here, being for sale. So.
Yeah. It's kind of a
I mean,
business.
we can, so, I mean, we can think about clarifying that and then, making it, some kind of, actually putting a number on it. You're allowed, if you're selling a car residential, you're only allowed to have, one or two or, because right now I just kind of use my discretion.
Well, I think it'd be nice to have some sort of limit on the residential as well as any kind of private lots like this, but that, in doing so, it would enable the people to occasionally repair a car or sell a vehicle that they possess themselves without getting in trouble. And then it's largely managed by complaints anyways.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to revisit or give some
Yeah.
further thought to the content of item 7 there. Anything else in 9.1?
If we're still in 91C,
914C?
uh,
C, off-street parking
94,
requirements?
91C5, which is bicycle parking.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not there yet.
And on mine, it's on page 9.4, the bottom. The only question I had here is this for parking facilities must have bicycle parking, but doesn't say anything about like numbers. Does that mean I could build a new Walmart and put in one bicycle spot? And again, doesn't this, it's off-street parking requirements, does it apply to residential? Because it's in the general section here, right? So it seemed to me this is more for like multifamily housing or commercial areas that you want a place for people to park their bikes. And if we're commercial, it seems like it's almost like a parking lot, right, where you have a minimum.
Like I look at downtown where they allow the bicycles parking on the sidewalks. I don't know if you've noticed, sometimes it's a hindrance, depending on how people. Now that is where I'd be concerned that we're taking a walking well, you're not supposed to be riding a bike, but we're allowing them to park a bike there. That would be a concern that I think we would utilize this, but a Walmart, something that has lots of parking spaces, and would we make them put so many bicycle racks in? Or is that, they should consider that based on who attends their store, you know? McDonald's, same thing.
Right? So I guess I had 2 points with this. One is, this seemed like it applied to residential, because it's it doesn't discriminate by district at all. And I don't want to put a bike rack in my yard. And two, do we want to talk about the minimums at all? And I don't have good ideas on that. I just, it seemed like it was odd that there was no minimum at all.
Seems like it's worth discussing at least. But yes, I would agree that this seems like it would be restricted to commercial use, not residential use.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, or maybe in high-density residential.
Like R3As.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the next section, if that's all right, which is 6, the barrier-free parking requirements. Again, and this is only because it's in this general requirements, parking spaces for barrier-free. I didn't see something that says, oh, but if for a home, you don't have to have barrier-free, because right now it says up to 25 parking spots, I have to have a barrier-free parking spot.
It says except single and.
Two-family dwelling units.
It did? Okay, I missed it when I read it originally. Okay, so, and I thought of my business, I've been looking for a property. I have a limited number of employees, we don't have clients that ever show up, because we always go see the clients. If I were to put an office in a home, like as a buffer boundary, where I'm not gonna have clients and not retail, am I gonna have to put in a barrier-free for 4 parking spots?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, according to this. I didn't know if that's state and or federal that says, hey, if you have 1 employee at a business and you have 1 parking spot, it better be handicapped. I don't know. That was my question. Do you know the answer to that, Peter? What the federal requirements are?
So do we just want to make a note to ask Chris to
If they're
tell
federal
us.
requirements.
Yeah, and obviously not for retail, but there are situations like in an office, maybe environment where, I guess if you're gonna build something new, I don't know. Anyways, I was thinking of personal circumstances and how that would be difficult.
So are the numbers of barrier-free spaces required based on, you know, federal law, state law, whatever? What's the basis of those numbers? Is that really what we're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on 9.1? Got a couple big tables in here. I'm assuming we're not going to parse those. but-
Your question only applies to off-street parking, though. If it was a business that had street parking, this wouldn't be a concern, correct?
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure, is off-street, it does say not two-family or single-family dwelling, right?
But it all
But I
falls
thought of
under
it.
off-street parking requirements.
Correct. Yeah, so I was thinking of more like a small office, very small office, non-retail, where you've only got 3 or 4 spots total.
I guess I'm trying to see where the requirement is for the amount of parking that must be required or provided in general.
But wouldn't that come from the state?
Well, I didn't know.
If you're utilizing it for a business, I would think they'd tell you how many handicap spots. you
Right.
have to have.
That's why I was curious if there was right there, it's anywhere from 1 to 25, right? You required 1 handicap barrier
But
free.
again, I think that's a good question for Chris to look at.
Well, and the,
I gotta do this on my stick.
yeah. I don't know if this helps anybody, but in 6, the last sentence, He states barrier-free parking shall comply with the state of Michigan barrier-free rules, Michigan Public Act number 1 of 1966 is amended, the adopted Township Building Code, and the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. So it could be that he got these numbers just from those documents, but I can check with him.
Yeah, and really, I guess the question that Brian raised is there a minimum size of a parking lot, business parking lot, where you wouldn't actually need a barrier-free
Yeah.
space, or is it required in every business parking lot?
You need 2.39 spaces per 1,000 square feet.
And one of those is
One
handicapped.
of those is handicapped.
So I got one parking spot and one barrier-free.
So, like Phil said, he probably just copy and paste the state of Michigan requirement. So you can put that in and then just put your name tag, and that's your parking spot.
Other items from 9.1?
At the end of 9.1, so this would be recreational vehicle parking, which is F, I believe, F2C.
Okay, I got a couple things before that.
Before that, okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Surface and drainage, and 4, it's on 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
And C, it says the building official and/or the township engineer. Isn't that supposed to be like the drain commissioner or something?
I'm sorry, Lise, which one is
Okay,
it?
it's number 4,
Right, we
surfacing
don't-
and drainage, C.
Page
Oh, yeah.
9-12.
We don't
Thank you.
have a township.
Oh, mine's
engineer.
9/11, 9/11.
Mine's a
Oh,
nine.
really?
It's on 9/11, yeah.
Yeah,
Mine's on
Yes, you're right, we
9-12.
don't have the township engineer like we
but I,
talked last time.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that we'll have to keep note of when the final version of, I guess, what title we want to give.
County engineer?
Yeah. So,
okay, what's the other one?
We could probably make the language more flexible, right? So if in the future the township ever had our own engineer for that, but
yeah, I guess, township hired, you know, or whatever, township approved engineer.
Yeah. Township approved.
Okay.
same page?
Okay, and then,
Oh, sorry, Lisa.
sorry, I got a few more before I get to that part where you're at.
Well, I got one on that same page.
Oh, do you?
All right, so what else on 9/11?
Mine's on item 7, Lisa.
Buildings?
The, no structure shall be permitted in an off-street parking lot except for maintenance building and/or parking attendants shelter. So I went to look up the definition of maintenance building, and I couldn't find it in what I had, and I thought that probably needs to either be defined or use a definition that we have.
Okay.
Because I wasn't sure, what is a maintenance building?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that page?
Not that one. Alright.
And you said you had something before 9-11?
No,
No?
What was your next item?
on 9/12.
Okay.
Okay, commercial vehicle parking, maybe. Hold on, this might
Residential
not be the right
districts?
spot. Okay, hold on, I didn't highlight it. Oh, maybe it's in the 2. I don't know, it's completely different from the one we have, so it was kind of hard to compare the two. But no, it's in the C, where it says location for 2 for recreational vehicle parking, which is where you're at.
Oh,
No.
that's where I had mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Where are we at?
Um,
Oh, I see. Okay, it's on,
F2?
F2C.
F2C,
Oh,
location.
So that's on page, okay, 9-13, okay. Titled location. So recreational vehicles that are not parked or stored in a building may be parked or stored on a lot provided that the vehicles are located no closer to the front of the lot than any portion of the principal structure. So an example would be a house. And no closer than 10 feet from a side or rear property line. If any portion of a recreational vehicle is parked or stored within a required side or rear yard setback, that says any portion of, or if more than 2 vehicles are parked or stored, then the vehicle shall be screened from adjoining property in accordance with section 10. Vehicles shall be stored in a location where they are readily accessible and capable of being moved.
Wow.
So if I jump to 10, I wonder what the screening is.
No kidding.
So the way this is worded, because it makes sense that if you had the
6-foot spot where I can park
recreational
my car.
vehicle on the side yard, but, so this is stating that if it's any portion of your vehicle, even if it's in the side yard, if it,
I don't know.
has to be screened.
That one needs to be worked on, I think.
Yeah, so I have the same
So-
comment then, Lisa. I
So
basically
by-
have the same comment, or concerns.
So by vehicle, and help me, everybody's probably got the answer, does that mean trailers?
That was my assumption when I,
Wait, it could be vehicle, trailer, I mean, anything you wanna park on the side, can't even park it there anymore.
Well,
Unless it's in a
can't park it in
certain
the front
spot.
either.
Okay, so let me give you an example of where I see this fitting.
Okay.
My house, ZBA gave approval for a pole barn to be built closer to the property line than our, whatever setback, 25 feet or whatever it is. And then they take and they build a gravel storage lot and put all their trailers right there, which is, gives them enough room to cut grass on one path, but that's all right on my line then. So, I don't think we should allow that encroachment. If we're stopping the building, we shouldn't allow them to make storage. I mean, permanent, it's not just parked on the grass. They actually built a gravel base and they're storing their, so that they can't see it, but I can. Again, I think there's a reason for this, but maybe needs to be reworded, but we shouldn't allow it.
Yeah, but the way I read that is, I mean, you couldn't even park it in your driveway because it sits closer to the road than your principal structure.
But if you were given the approval to put your driveway to build, well, I guess that's 25 feet from the side yard, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying is, but I'm just talking about the front. It's saying that you can't sit in front of the principal building, or at the front of the building.
Well, I was.
So that means I
guess was
can't park it
going
in my
by side.
driveway, which is in front of my building.
So I
Yeah.
got an example.
Am I
here.
understanding
I'm
that
just gonna
correctly?
Read through and see if this makes sense to anybody. Pick just a random house, I don't think this is anyone's, but, so if we're looking at this house right here, so this would be our front yard, our side yards, and our rear yard. So this is stating, recreational vehicles that are not parked or stored in a building, so let's say, I guess you had your camper and it was not in the garage, may be parked or stored on a lot, provided that the vehicles are located no closer to the front of the lot than any portion of the principal structure.
So that cuts
So
off a
ideally,
third.
that would mean that you're putting it probably in the side or the rear yard. You can't put it in the front yard. Are located no closer, okay, then, and no closer than 10 feet from any side or rear property line. So that means you'd have to have it 10 feet off of this line, 10 feet off of this line, and at least 10 feet off of this line. From a side or rear property line. If any portion of a recreational vehicle is parked or stored within a required side or rear yard setback, Okay. So
There's a
that is-
conflict.
Well, but what it's saying is,
Park
so
within
let's
the
say,
setback.
for example, let's say well, because
Well,
Let's say-
setbacks for building a structure, right?
well, but, yeah, so that would be for because it says, if any portion of the recreational vehicle is parked or stored within a required side or rear yard setback. So let's use this for an example. I can't remember off the top of my head what the setback is, but let's say you have a 10-foot side yard setback and a 25-foot rear yard setback. Well, it already states here that it has to be 10 feet off of the side yard, which means you'd clear any side yard setback. And you have to be at least 10 feet off of the rear yard, but let's say in this example, the rear yard setback is 25 feet. So it would allow you to still store
You just have to
in
screen
the
it.
side or the rear yard. It's just that even though you only have to be 10 feet off of the rear yard line, let's say your rear yard setback was 25, if you're within that 25, then you'd have to be screened.
Now, what if
So-
you're in one of them houses way up there where there's not any room?
Yeah, and I mean, I just use this one because it's a clear example. I mean, once we get into other yards, it's,
Yeah, you couldn't use side yard in those,
Uh-uh.
yeah.
with the exception of being in the rear side yard.
I mean, because ideally, like, it looks like there's a car parked here. I mean, if you had your trailer RV, if you just parked it right here,
Be okay.
you'd be fine. And that's kind of like where I guess this says that it wants to be parked. And if you want to park it all the way back here, and now you're within, let's say, the 25-foot rear yard setback, then it has to be screened. But to get away from that screening, you would just move it forward.
By the way, recreational vehicles defined as travel trailer, pickup camper, motorhome, folding tent trailer, boat trailers, that includes like canoes, and then snowmobiles, all-terrain, four-wheelers, utility trailers, etc. So it's pretty wide. I mean, everything from motorhomes down to a canoe.
But I don't have a problem with it.
Now, it's also stating that if you were to have, even if you had two campers, and you parked them right here on the side, then they would have to be screened. So I guess you'd only be allowed to have the one, because it says, more than two, so if you had three.
And Peter, within the lots in the upper right where they're much closer, the side yards are pretty small.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put your canoe on the side of the house, you just would have to put a screening on it, right?
Yeah, if it's within that 10 feet, you have
Right.
to screen it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
That's
in
reasonable.
this example, it's saying no closer than 10 feet. So, if you had to, so you'd have to pick, I guess, which side.
regardless of
Yeah.
setback, it's no closer than 10 feet.
Yeah. But like I said, in our current ordinance, side yard setbacks range in residential, I believe maybe 6 to 10 feet.
Setbacks?
Setbacks are a principal structure.
I thought they were 25.
I'm talking about side yard.
25.
R2A district side yard setback is 10, R2B is 6, R3A, R3B multifamily is 30. Agricultural and R1 rural residential is no side yard shall be less than 10% of the required lot width. So that would be 16 and a half feet for ag and 15 for R1. But now the rear yard setbacks are larger.
I guess I'm okay with
Yeah.
the idea that, well, these are some of the smallest parcels we have on this particular site. I guess I'm okay with the notion that some people's parcels might be too small to feasibly store a recreational vehicle year-round. But I wonder if there can't be some allowance for, I mean, if I've got a small lot and I can't store something on my property, but I'm gonna use a pop-up camper for the summer, isn't there some sort of allowance that you can park it in the driveway for a little while?
2 weeks, it says,
Yeah.
Oh, does it?
somewhere in there,
Yeah.
right through there.
Okay.
Well, but that's for, I thought if you're doing repair storage, I think the waiver was.
Temporary, okay,
Had a
we're,
disclaimer, it's H in the same section. At least that's where I remember reading it.
Waiver of regulations and provisions concerning connections, utilities, use as living quarters, and location may be waived for a period of up to 2 weeks to permit repair of the occupants or owner's equipment or to permit the parking of a recreational vehicle of a guest. Permits for any such waiver shall be obtained by the zoning official. No more than 2 permits shall be issued for each activity, repair, storage of guest vehicle per calendar year. So it's only for 2 weeks. And we're
I know.
allowed 2, so that'd be 4 weeks in a year.
Yeah, and this was my next comment I had in this section, which I thought there could be situations like when we had flooding, for example, maybe somebody needs, 3 or 4 permits under extenuous circumstances.
Why would you have to, I mean, you gotta get a permit
You gotta get a permit.
to fix something. What if it takes 2
I was
weeks to
thinking
get
for
the part,
living,
you
like,
know?
if you
But,
were
oh,
living in a motorhome while your
Yeah.
home was being, I don't know, you got rid of mold or asbestos, for example.
But even if you're fixing it, sometimes it takes 2 weeks to get the part.
Well, I
You
think-
know, so what do you do then? Oh, gotta get another permit, pay
It
another one.
also says in B that at no time shall recreational park or storage or residential restriction be used for living or housekeeping purposes.
So not even
I-
as a
Yeah,
temporary dwelling.
I
I've seen
just-
that too.
I think back to the fact that we're allowing how many vehicles to sit in a yard indefinitely? Yet we can't allow somebody to put a pop-up camper in their driveway for the summer so they can take it and go as they please without having to put it back in storage?
Well, I think people are doing it, it's just who's driving around enforcing that? I mean, who's got the time to do that?
Well, yeah, that's
I mean,
true. I mean, what people
I
are
think it's back to that
gonna do
monitoring.
versus, but the problem is that if as your neighbor, they call and complain, then it can be enforced. you
Correct.
know.
Well,
Correct.
I mean, as of right now, we don't really have that there is no requirement on where you have to store your, if you have a trailer, in our ordinance right now.
But like fifth wheels and stuff, has to be side yard or rear yard, right? I thought. You don't have to look it up, that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
I'd like to encourage people to go camping.
Well,
Take your kids out and go.
I,
Own a camper.
I mean, I've looked at like northern municipalities because I've looked at properties throughout the years, and they have different regulations for how long you could put a camper on a property before you develop and stuff like that. But I've seen a lot that gives 30 to 90 days in any calendar year that you can store a camper on that lot. I don't know if we can apply some sort of similar philosophy. If a 90-day summer, what's that?
Good luck making me move mine. There's there's
You can't store
very,
anything outside in this township.
we can't build a pole barn, well, no, I'm sorry, I guess we can if it's monstrous. We can build inside storage, but there's not much inside storage here, maybe McGurk's old place.
I'm only talking
Storage
about
inside.
in the driveway right now. I'm not talking about storage behind the house or side of the house. I'm talking about if like these lots here where I can't store on the side of my house because I don't have the lot size for it. If I did have my camper or recreational vehicle stored off-site somewhere, could I leave it in my driveway for the summer so I don't have to put it back in storage every time I want to go camping? That's what I'm asking about. Is there a period of time that you could allow somebody to put a boat or a camper or a canoe trailer in their driveway and not get harassed for it? Like I say, you can put 2 or 3 cars in your driveway.
I believe so.
Because if you go down here to the apartments just north of the high place, they're parking their little motorhomes in their driveway because that is all they have. They don't even have a yard, they have just a driveway. And it won't go in the garage.
Talking about the condos,
Condos,
West Union?
whatever that's called, I don't know.
Maybe it's a seasonal thing, like.
Yeah.
I will put my snowmobile trailer, come here November, and it will sit in my driveway. And then I'll pull out, and I park it come April, and it sits. Same thing, a camper's gonna go in April, and then go away in November.
Well, I think that we have to be I guess, sensitive to neighbors and be able to say somebody's not gonna store something there for 3 years without ever doing anything with it, but to provide a seasonal storage of a recreational vehicle where it's gonna go away or be housed more permanently somewhere else, it seems like we could allow seasonal storage in a driveway for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so you made a note of that?
Mm-hmm, yeah, the recreational vehicle parking to go over again.
Ready to move on to 9.2? Loading space requirements.
In B, number 7, this chart's different than the one we had. I just wanted to know if it was like state. I mean, it's only like a little different, but
The schedule of loading space requirements?
like gross floor area, number of loading spaces,
Yeah.
or on 914. It's a little different. And then the 9.3, doesn't the road commission do that part? So, it should be like referred to road commission for almost all of 9.3.
For loading,
No,
excuse me.
Access man-
I'm like skipping pieces, sorry. But, the minimum number of loading spaces is a little different than the one we
Yeah,
had in our
that's where
old.
I was still there.
So you're really just asking what is the source of those?
Yeah, pretty much, because it's a little different. Just double checking it.
I did like, I mean, it gives us some flexibility, you're back on that,
Yeah.
It gives some flexibility to the planning commission to say, this is the guide, but the planning commission may modify those requirements. So we have some latitude there, too. Is it, from what you saw then, is it more restrictive or less restrictive than?
Less. I think. Yeah, less.
Let's see.
I can't remember.
The existing ordinance, we have up to 20,000 square feet, one space. This has a note below for 0 to under 5,000, and then 5,000 to 19,000, one space. 20,000 to less than 99,000. States one space plus one space for each 20,000 square feet in excess of 20,000. Whereas currently, we have 20,000 to 50,000, two spaces, and then 50 to 100,000, three spaces. So if we went one for each 20,000 in excess of 20,000, all the way up to under 99 or 100,000, so you'd have 20,000 and then 40, 60, 80.
You gotta only retire 4.
Yeah. So it's slightly different. But yeah, I have the note how he came to these, numbers.
Access management?
This is one, yeah. I thought that the road commission did all of this part.
Well, because I think this is what you said you were getting at, Brian,
Yeah,
with,
so this would be- at least how I interpreted this is not the main thoroughfare, but the inner roads, right, between establishments.
Oh,
yeah, because at 9.3A, it talks about the findings of, the 2006 plan that the township was involved with in the state and the city. And so this is actually finally taking, I guess, the findings of that study and then developing some kind of access management plan that would be in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, but, I mean, at the very least, any site plan that would have this kind of stuff would have to go through fire, ICTC. I'm assuming the road commission would probably look at it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably not gonna care as much once,
Once it's out of the right of way.
yeah.
Curb cuts, right?
So public transportation and safety, fire safety, at minimum would be looked at.
That's the access management requirements. Access points, not including driveways that serve a single-family home, two-family home, or central service, shall comply with the following requirements. The spacing requirements specified below apply to existing and proposed driveways and roads, with the exception single-family driveways. If there is a change in use from single-family residential to another use, the access point shall be brought into compliance with the requirements of the section where feasible. One access point permitted. Each lot shall be permitted one access point. This access point may be an individual driveway, shared access with an adjacent use, access via service drive or frontage road, subject to the standards that follow. Individual driveway may be permitted where the standards of this article are met, provided that such driveway is located to facilitate shared access by adjacent parcels. 2, shared access easement. The location of the access point shall comply with the standards of this section and shall provide the opportunity for shared access with adjoining lots where applicable. Each lot developed under this ordinance shall be required to grant shared access easements to adjoining lots to allow for future shared access. Where a proposed parking lot is located adjacent to the parking lot of a similar use, there shall be a vehicular connection where feasible. Just wanted to read that, because we were talking about earlier about the, who goes first, and then how would that look?
All right. Actually, in the next section immediately below that, under new driveway, he says, shall be, may be permitted by the planning commission upon finding the conditions 1 or 2, but then below it, he's got A and B, so I'm assuming he means A and B, or A and B.
Or is he meaning the table 1 and 2? Or no? Probably not.
Yeah, no, I think he means the.
Yeah, A and B.
Yeah.
But like, don't these still have to be approved by the road commission though, right? Am I wrong? Shouldn't it say that in here somewhere or something?
Yeah, if there's ingress or egress onto their roads, they wanna look at it.
And we wanna look at widths, construction materials, things like that. But I don't think they're gonna study our access management plan, make sure it applies to that driveway.
No, we're only worried about their
Yeah. What touches their road?
location, yeah.
Presumably, it would have to be approved by the fire department for access, for
Oh,
that.
that's what it is.
And we always let ICTC sign off too, right?
Yeah. I think it's good.
That's all I had,
Time
Matt.
we had some, I mean, because so many times we've just had to say, well, gee, this would be great, but.
Does this mean we connect Target and JCPenney finally?
That's long overdue.
It is. How long have they been trying to do that, right?
Anything on this section? We're ready to move on to section, section 10?
I have one general comment, if I may, real quick, sorry. We had talked about it in a previous meeting that we want to make sure it was addressed, and that was taxi services. I don't know if you remember that discussion, where we had neighbors parking 6 taxis in their yard. And I kept trying to apply it to this as I was reading through it, and I never really was able to do it, but I'm not sure I gave it the full effort, other than I was in the back of my mind as I'm reading this. But we wanted to make sure before that we dealt with taxi services out in some of those residential areas and/or rural residential.
I think, because I remember the idea with that is, and I mean, you even have, with the new businesses that weren't around in 1991, the shared driving services like Uber, Lyft, and on. So the idea that if you're using the vehicle for your own personal use and you also happen to use it, I guess, for commercial use, then there's no problem, but it would be the idea of parking vehicles that maybe are used for the business, that are part of the fleet, but are not actually used by anybody that lives at the dwelling.
Well said.
So,
Yeah, fleet cars is a good way to
Yeah.
put it.
Now you describe under the home-based business. it's,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
So is it a matter of, if those are in existence in the township and we had complaints, we might say, hey, you have to apply for home occupation?
Yeah, it'd basically be, if we get a complaint, hey, but there's, 8 cars consistently parked, at your house, what's going on? Are some of these, are they inoperable? Are you working on them? What's, going on? And then it'd be, working on a couple of them, and then, this is my wife, this is my, 17-year-old sons, and on, and if, that's what it is, and that's what it is, but if it's, no, this is, I'm running a taxi service, and this is my fleet, then, yeah, you're gonna have to apply for a
Okay.
home occupation, or home business, yeah.
Thanks for entertaining me.
Okay. And then section 10, landscaping and screening. Anything under 10.1, intent and scope of requirements?
Does 10.1C mean that if we really felt there was additional screening that was required, that we have that power?
Well,
It
it
says
says the developer and township
mutual.
agree.
Yeah, both agree, but, I mean, so why would the developer ever agree if we went, hey, you're abutting residences here and it's heavy traffic flow, we really think we need tighter screening on this than 15 foot apart.
Because they're a good citizen?
Yeah, right.
More extensive landscaping doesn't necessarily say screening, if you have
Yeah.
to spend more money.
Yeah.
More extensive.
Okay, so that's his landscaping, not necessarily screening.
Yeah, and I guess it's differentiated in this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aspirational language. Anything else in 10.1? 10.2, general landscaping requirements.
That's something under E.
Anything on general site requirements, landscaping adjacent to roads, berms, green belts?
Evergreen tree went from 6 to 8 foot tall here.
Where's that? The table?
Table.
Which table?
I'm on summary of plan materials, 10.4.
So are you
Okay.
saying in our
Six.
existing ordinance
I
it's
think
6?
6.
And I think
And
6
it's-
is more reasonable than 8.
No,
Yeah.
8.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Yeah, let me just, take a look here.
I find in my own personal experience that the bigger the tree you plant, the longer it takes to get itself established. So you can plant a 3-foot tree and it'll be 20 foot tall in the same amount of time that a 10-foot tree
Yeah,
would be.
evergreen trees currently are 6, so,
I
say
think
we
they should
go
be
there.
6.
So
Yeah.
we'll suggest putting that back to 6. So now 10.2, general landscaping requirements.
How
Anything?
about our shrubs? Are they 3 feet?
Yeah. I think so.
No, evergreen shrub. What's the difference between,
This just says shrubs or hedges.
evergreen shrubs is
Minimum
3
height,
feet, shrubs
3
is 2 feet.
I plant a lot of stuff that's a lot less than 3
To the
feet
root.
high. sorry?
That's to the root. I know.
Are you still looking at
Teasing.
Yeah.
shrubs and hedges?
Yeah.
Off from the,
Where we just adjusted from 8 feet to 6 feet, are we saying they have to
oh,
plant shrubs that are minimum height of 3 feet from grade? That just seems like a very mature
it's a big shrub.
Well,
shrub.
maybe you could probably get one of those at Home Depot.
But I'm just wondering, is there a benefit for a shrub? or a
On our
hedge?
current ordinance, it states shrubs 4 feet in height.
Ooh,
It's a,
So we're getting
it's
a
a big
break.
shrub.
They're getting a break.
Great, sorry.
I thought it was 3 foot.
But that is, I mean, that's a large shrub, I guess.
So 3 would be a reduction from what the ordinance is now.
I'm sure the point is just to, is to try to create mature landscaping immediately as opposed to 5 years from now.
That's
But
quite mature.
no, that's a big shrub.
It's a big shrub.
That's like a 2-gallon pot at least.
I guess, have we ever heard any complaints about that requirement? I don't even think I've ever addressed
Oh,
the height of a shrub.
They always use trees, right? I mean, it's.
No, not necessarily. Because if there's a berm built,
Oh,
and
that's
they
right.
put, you know, again,
Yeah.
yes, I've only talked about the trees, the evergreen trees, for screening. But I don't know if I've ever looked at and said, oh, you gotta have 4-foot shrub there, because I think that's asking something above and beyond for a shrub. Not 3 feet, but
I know who I'm.
my
rec-
opinion.
The first, when the township decides to hire a shrub enforcement officer, I know who I'm recommending.
You're gonna make a lot of money on that one.
Well, the city's doing it, they'll probably do it for you.
Just take a cut of what do they collect?
Yeah.
General,
Perfect.
general,
We won't have a short shrub in the township.
general landscaping
You won't.
requirements, anything under A, B, C, or D.
I got A2, a mixture of evergreen and deciduous trees shall be planted on non-residential parcels at a rate of 1 tree per 300 square feet.
3,000.
3,000.
Square feet of what? Building, parcel?
Well, or
Any
or
unpaved
portion-
open
Or
area.
portion thereof of any unpaved open area.
Non-residential parcels.
We're writing all this stuff, but are we enforcing?
It will be now.
Aye.
Site plan.
Well, at least it gives you the ability to enforce it.
Are we good on?
Yes.
Okay. Anything on B? C? D?
Should that say
E, screening?
E1.
thereof?
This talks about,
I'm assuming so.
if you're budding, just remembering, if you're budding residential, right? Is this section?
Which one are you on, Brian?
This would be E.
10-5, it's E,
E,
screening.
screening.
1.
You just reread it, so. Yeah, the last section of that one, wherever screening is required adjacent to residentially zoned or used property, the screening must be installed prior to the beginning of site grading and general construction, except where such activity would result in damage to the screening. And I thought it would be helpful, I mean, I understand the intent of that is if we're next door to or budding a residence, right? We're gonna put the screening up, then do the construction. And I can see why, well, maybe you have to do the grading before you can put that in, right? So it seems like if I can make the argument that I can't put those in now because I'm gonna do the grading, then I don't have to put these things in until I'm done and get my occupancy permit essentially. And it seems like the intent would be that at earliest possible, that you do that, provide that screening for the residents next door. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yep.
I mean, that have to be worked out with the building official and.
You still
What-
got
what's
your
reasonable
silt
for-
fence up there.
Well, yeah, you
still
got
got-
silt fence
I
up
mean,
there, you got irrigation going through there.
Right.
I mean,
I'm not sure, especially if I'm the guy laying the irrigation pipe, I'm not gonna wanna be,
Prior.
No, I would agree, you wanna,
I would relax that.
well, I think that's where you want some latitude to say, yeah, you don't have to put it in, but
Well, the shrub guy.
you don't want
that's
that to be-
measuring
you
your
don't-
shrubs is the one enforcing it, so.
But you don't want this, what it says here is if you're not putting it in early because of something, and I go, oh, I can have silt fence up, then that could be the very last thing I do before I get my occupancy permit.
Well, you have to have it in before you get your occupancy.
Right, that's what I mean, so it could be the last thing I do is just so I get it, whereas maybe the intent of that is, oh, there's at some point during the construction phase where it makes sense to get that in to help protect the neighbor.
I don't know that a 6-foot tree is gonna protect the neighbor no matter what.
Reasonable. Anyways, that was what I caught in that, was it just
Yeah.
seemed,
So do you want to suggest something, or?
I don't have a suggestion, I just wanted to bring that up,
Yeah.
but I'm not hearing big concerns, so
I've
I'm
been
not
on a lot
concerned
of
about it either.
construction sites, and it would be very difficult to build a screen.
Prior to grading.
I would
Very
agree.
high
Yeah.
risk.
But that's what it says, though.
I agree, I think it needs to be changed.
Anybody could be, you know, we're an exception, maybe, where this guy isn't building on the south half of his 10 acres, where there's nothing going on, and he had the screen, maybe that would be an instance. If you took he was developing that whole 6-acre parcel, it would be impossible.
Yeah, there could, I mean, on a large enough lot where the building is far enough away, but you still have the residential next door and you need the screening,
It's possible.
you could, yeah, you probably could do it.
But I think most of the time they would argue that grading of the earthwork activities are going to be.
But all they have to do is say the activity is going to damage the screening.
Right.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
All right. F, parking
Number
lot landscaping?
I'm Number 1. I mean, for the parking areas containing greater than 10 spaces shall incorporate at least 30 square feet of interior landscaping. You gotta put like fancy stuff in your parking lot. I don't understand that.
And like your curb on.
Put some trees in there.
Yeah, your curb on.
I mean-
30 square feet is very big.
I don't like that.
5 by 6.
30 square feet isn't the size of a standard bathroom,
Yeah.
which would be 10 by 6 usually.
I'm just
I
saying,
like
is it
that.
necessary is what I'm saying.
The
Like,
parking lot
that.
landscaping?
Yeah. So if you got like a
an
Walmart
added
parking lot, they
cost.
have to stick a bunch
A lot
of,
of curb.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that, I mean, 10,
Right.
10 may be a low number, but I'm sure what they're talking about is trying to reduce the amount of just extended asphalt.
Yeah.
Like
Well-
Menards.
Well, because I was gonna say,
Sam's.
further, earlier,
But big
up-
box makes sense to have.
Yeah, well, because where it says, in the first table, summary of minimum landscaping requirements, at the very bottom of the table, it says parking lot landscaping, and it has where it talks about 1 shade tree per 5 spaces. One thing that I have gotten a call, I mean, I got it one summer where I believe it was a really hot summer, and somebody complained and they said, you know, the idea of, you know, they're walking through a parking lot and they're, you know, trying to get down Bluegrass Road, and I guess just kind of the lack of, you know, it'd be nice if I had a tree or something to just, you know, take a breather at and sit underneath, you know, the shade, but, so, I mean, there is, I guess, that thing to think about, but,
I think this speaks to aesthetics, though.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, whether it's big box or not, we're talking about having retail landscape that looks reasonably pleasing.
every 10 spaces, it just seems like maybe like 15 or 20 or something.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you think about it.
I mean,
you're
what if you
doing-
have 12 spaces and you gotta put a plant like right there?
So how many
I'm
parking
just saying.
spots are in Hobby Lobby?
There's a lot.
I was just gonna say 400. So how many trees is that?
1,200 square feet of landscaping.
It's 80 trees, this will look awful nice.
That is a lot.
Is that right?
Well, if it's 400 parking lots, right?
400 parking spaces, you got
That would
30
be
square
a
feet per 10.
tree, a tree, right?
So
A
it's
shade
300
tree
square
every
feet per 100 parking spaces.
20 per, yeah.
Well, how many square feet does a tree take up?
I don't know. It's one for every 5 parking spaces, right? So, yeah.
No.
Oh, here we go.
One tree, this is, it's in the table and it's in the
Yeah, it says
zoning
one for every
on
5.
4B.
Landscape ratio doesn't specify trees, it's landscaping in general.
No, it's in there.
Yeah, it's parking
Well,
lot.
they have
Parking lot.
land.
the general landscaping ratio,
One
and then they
sh-
also have a deciduous or evergreen tree.
Yeah.
And that's where you're getting the one shade tree for
It's in
5
the
5
chart
spaces.
too.
Right, I'm just saying, it's not in this as I was looking at it,
And
yeah.
then it's in this thing different.
So let's go to Holiday Inn parking lot.
I-
They've got a lot of landscaping in there already, but you start throwing these numbers at them and they're gonna really reduce the number of spots they have for their tenants.
Maybe it is a disincentive to not create 500 parking spots.
hope
I don't know.
people
Is
don't
that
It
what we
seems
wanna
like-
do, is discourage people from building in our,
In Hobby Lobby,
Yeah.
we need 400 parking spots.
No.
No.
well, agreed.
So I guess
And they may
maybe
not have them all marked for them either anyway, by city code, right?
a note you want me to make is that we're in agreement that we'd like to see landscaping trees, but as far as the number required, maybe reducing that.
I would like to see, before we even reduce it, I would just simply like to see what it looks like on a site plan.
Sure.
So we can see some sort of, they gotta be able to provide some examples.
And
Maybe it
makes-
looks perfectly reasonable, I don't know.
It makes some sense in more of a retail area that's, I don't know, maybe along Pickard, right? We put a lot of trees there, but the parking lot, like Hobby Lobby or Walmart, I mean, is big box an exception to that? I don't know. It just seems weird, doesn't it?
So let's use, what's the ale house down there in Broomfield?
Hunter's Ale?
Hunter's Ale, let's use that, that's got a lot of parking spaces out. How much added internal landscaping are you gonna have to add there?
You know, keep in mind, they're probably doing landscaping all along, well, I can't remember if it's along the building or not. That's a lot of square footage it would be between a sidewalk and a building.
But you're gonna put a tree in the middle of the parking lot, is that what it's meaning? Because think about it, it's gonna grow and get really big, and then it's gonna mess all your stuff up.
Well, that's what I mean, it seems like it's conflicting, because
You're
this,
gonna have to redo your parking lot.
section F1 is talking about 30 square feet, and it's not specifying, it's saying for every 10 spaces, it's 30 square feet of interior landscaping. It's not saying trees, but then the table does say it's
Trees.
providing a number of trees per parking spaces, which is conflicting.
Well, the text says number of shade trees per 5 parking spots. The text and the table say it. Or did I miss something?
But do
Ryan?
those have to be interior, or can they be along the perimeter of the parking lot?
Yeah, I guess when I
The
read it.
text says,
I was
in
thinking-
section F1, there's a mention of shade trees.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interior.
B. Or F1. Yeah,
No.
F4B.
Oh, F4, I was only looking at F1, A, B, and C.
Oh.
The landscaping ratio.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, these could all be in the outer portion of the property, right? They don't have to be.
Landscaping ratio says
Interior.
30 square feet of interior landscaping per 10 parking spaces. But then we have another section.
So if you have more than 10 spaces, you have to incorporate 30 square feet of interior landscaping per parking space. So you're 300 plus.
If you're at 100
Anything-
parking spaces.
Anything over 10, you're adding 30 square feet.
No,
Two
it's,
trees, yeah, 10.
Well, if you don't have a place to put a tree.
Isn't a lot if you're talking about the landscaping that may be bordering the parking lot. That wouldn't be unusual, right?
Now, this is saying interior.
Well, I know.
Is it something we can just take a note on and
Well,
just
yeah,
ask him when he
interior.
comes?
I think so. Why don't you just, yeah, let's ask him, is this typical? Do you have examples? What would it look like?
It's like in
Keep in mind too, that if the local developers are paying attention, if anybody thinks that's unreasonable, they should, presumably they'll speak up. before this is approved. Anything else on parking lot landscaping? Landscaping rights of way. Maintenance of unobstructed visibility.
4-foot shrub
Where
that
are we?
don't obstruct the
Sorry.
view.
Where are you at?
Just going, I'm
He's just
just going
reading.
through F and G and H and so on.
I have one thing on 10.3, and it's just more of a comment, if I may. Can I,
I was just gonna ask if there was anything else on 10.2.
oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
He's right here.
G, H, I, J, K.
I just have it marked everywhere where it says something about the 10 feet, 30.
Okay.
It's
So-
gotta be some sort of best practice here that they're proposing, so they've gotta be able to provide some examples of what it looks like.
Yeah, so more flesh out where you got this, what it's based on. So 10.3, specific landscaping requirements for zoning districts.
I just have one comment on 4.
Yeah.
10.3A4. This is only because this happens a lot. It says, must provide screening when commercial, office, or industrial abuts directly to residential. And where I've heard concerns being discussed is like when a residential is directly across the street, we want some latitude potentially. In those cases, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. Say, hey, you gotta provide for screening.
You'd be blocking the public from looking at your business.
Right, and that's where it would make sense, but there are have been some cases where it'd be, oh, it'd be nice to put some right here, just to help.
Well, he
Oh,
seems to be trying to address that with that last phrase there, and/or where zone, loading areas would be visible from residential districts.
Yeah, I
Doesn't require
agree.
that it abuts.
Where we've had the issue is really doing some special use permits where we talk about the lights and how they're gonna affect the residents.
Yeah,
Where are you guys at here?
10A4.
yeah, screening.
10.3A?
Yeah, and then number 4.
On 10.7.
Yeah, I didn't wanna make
Okay.
it too
Page.
tough, but I was wondering, can we give ourselves some latitude to say, in this case, it makes sense, it's not gonna obstruct the view of the property, the commercial property.
Well, I
And
think
it
what
protects
the
the-
specific examples that we're talking about is when somebody had built a private road on a parcel that wasn't necessarily where the structure was going, but where there was question of whether or not we could provide screening along the private road between parcels. Is that?
That's
Well,
one
there's-
example. And there was the
Yeah.
bank, Mercantile Bank, the drive-through, we talked about how that might affect residences. I think it was Mercantile, right?
Yep, and then the new gas station down here where the parking shining across
Yeah.
the road.
And here it
Right.
didn't probably make sense to put up, because you wouldn't see the gas station.
Well, it was only in front of the parking.
Yeah,
Again,
right.
but there is some cases like a loading space where the truck they leave the truck running and it's shining in
Or maybe,
across the
or maybe a
road.
drive-through,
But yep,
where it might. Yeah, I didn't want to make it too restricted.
There without,
What's that?
how do we create discretion there without simply saying that?
I don't know.
We can add whatever we want when we want it.
But as I read this, I
or
was thinking
non-abutting proproperties that.
of budding, but are,
Non-abutting.
but there's a road in
Because if
between.
there's a road with a clear view, yeah. That's where I'd want to be able to use it, possibly.
Well, it's giving the option berm, green belt, or wall.
But if the residents, I mean, if we have a commercial across the street from a residential,
We say the road.
they're not abutting because there is the road there.
Yeah, okay.
And we've had cases where, oh, it'd be kind of nice to,
Well,
Yeah.
but it says, and/or where, it just happens that he's used the construction loading areas.
Loading.
But if you make that broader to say
Right.
where lights or traffic or other aspects would be visible from residential districts, then,
Non-abutting residential districts.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's across the road, yeah.
yeah, and I wouldn't want it to be too restrictive on commercial properties, but there are cases where it would have been useful.
I mean, I think it's implied that it's non-abutting, but it could be added to fully
Right.
clarify that.
That's all I had on that.
Okay. So maybe broaden the loading areas to some other construction. B, requirements for multifamily districts.
I've a one-word question on B6, privacy screen, the almost last word, subject to review by the planning commission. Shouldn't it be approval?
Subject to approval.
Subject to review and approval.
Slash
Review and
appro-
approval might be a good way to
review
put it.
slash approval.
Where's this one at again?
B6, privacy
B6,
screen.
Okay, the screen.
On 10.7.
Yeah, review and approval.
So would this be for B6, that privacy screen, multifamily dwellings designed so that the rear open areas or patio areas front onto a public street, a landscape privacy screen shall be provided. So is that to suggest that if the new development across the road from the cabin, which is still city, and they have patios that are,
There's a picture.
oh, there's a
This is for
picture showing right here.
multifamily.
So would we have required a screening along Broomfield there? Because I think they have a patio out front. I'm going from memory. I think they have
Do
a,
have a patio out front.
yeah.
That's 8 units though, so it's probably.
The cabin.
The cabin has a
Oh.
patio.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's the cabin, but also the units across the road
Right.
that are across from Crawford, both on Broomfield.
Oh, yeah, the new ones.
Do we have to screen all of those? I don't know. I mean, would a developer be mad if we said, well, you have to screen your patios from a road where people might want to be looking across the street and seeing the intramural fields or seeing something? I don't know.
He does have some pretty extensive landscaping going there.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying,
Yeah, here's
is
the
that what this would
illustration, yeah.
require?
Now with this one, he does provide an illustration to give you an idea
Right.
of what he's talking about.
And it's only when the rear patios go
Well, it
out to a
says-
public street, right?
Well, I don't know what
But
that
that's
means.
his
It
point.
says the rear open area or patio. It's not saying a rear patio,
True.
it's saying
Right.
patio.
Patio or deck, I would assume. So-
Well, most people put their patios in the back. I think that's why they said rear.
Required screening, sounds like.
But what's the difference between that deck on the second level, the access deck? They made access. to
Yeah.
it.
Oh, right.
How are you gonna screen that? You wouldn't.
It's just-
It's gotta be ground, well,
And so to your point, is this gonna hold them? to
technically
something
a
that they
patio, I
can't
think, would be on the
achieve?
ground.
Yeah, minimum 40-foot trees.
Well, I think a deck can be raised, but I think a patio is by definition on the ground, right? I don't know. So, right now, it doesn't apply to second-story decks, but I'm just trying to picture how this would be enforced. If somebody developed just across the line in Union, do they have to put trees up? Does the cabin, if they had a bar and grill with a patio that they want to be able to see traffic, do they have to screen that? It seems like, well, I guess it
Is it a
doesn't,
safety thing from the road?
I don't know.
I bet it's, I mean, I can see several things, right? I mean, potentially safety. It's also providing a nicer rear area for the residents of that. But let's say it's across, you've got a multifamily across from a neighborhood. You could be protecting that single-family property from maybe parties that are happening at the multifamily, for example.
So
If you lived in a college town, I don't know.
Yeah.
Can we waive screening by request?
Well, it does say, this is a subject to review. So
as
when
long
I
as
read
we-
this originally, I thought this is something the planning commission has latitude over,
Yeah, so as long as we can, I guess as long as we can,
where it makes sense.
where it makes sense, require it, but not require it for everyone. Somebody might want to be, that's part of the appeal, especially in retail, is that they are along the road and they can see it for a regular street.
Well, I mean, I think.
Although it does say screens shall be provided, may be provided if requested by the planning.
But it's multiple family districts, so in the cabin's case, I'm assuming that's commercial property.
You're right.
And that
For the
wouldn't,
cabin.
and that wouldn't be
Right.
required, so
Right.
they
Wouldn't be.
Yes.
wouldn't
right,
have to
for the
put
cabin.
anything in there, but in
the way
regards
this is
to the new
written is,
development.
though, right? Because this says where it fronts a public street. So the way this is written, it would, but I.
Not the
agree-
cabin.
No,
'cause
the
that's not-
cabin is-
That's not
No,
No,
multifamily.
but
those
the-
apartments.
But those
Apartments, yes,
And it
yes.
says shall,
Yeah, it says
so
shall.
it's not,
So
not
remove-
may be provided, which would give us the latitude.
Seems like we would want, I can just envision this, given that example, it seems like we would want some discretion to say, we may require it, or we can waive it.
Yeah, I mean, it just says may consist of combination of trees, shrubs, and berms, so you could just say that you need to have shrubs, so it's not blocking the view. Doesn't say that it has to be trees to block the view. And it's up to,
Right.
and it's up to our review, so I think it leaves that open to our common
This
sense.
This doesn't. What you put there is left up to us.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
it's saying you shall put it there.
Yeah, but it doesn't say you have to put trees, you can put shrubs, so you can
But it
still
could-
see.
But
it
I
could-
think
it
the
could say-
argument is, do we need to have screening along all the roads? Right? Let's use that apartment, the new apartments down there. The landscaping is beautiful. Is that enough?
I find it a little bit weird because I can see straight into there. I mean, somebody's watching TV or doing dishes, I can see straight into it, but that's, I guess, their prerogative, but,
Is it more for the cars driving by kind of thing?
well, I would guess that it's a sound buffer,
Sound.
and it's a privacy buffer, and,
So a
Aesthetically pleasing.
developer, I would think, would be driving for a sound barrier. But what would be the reason we'd want to make them put a full barrier there just for the lower level?
well, I think if we're just separating what we might consider college housing from family dwellings or something, I think
This
that-
is, I'm sorry, this is up against a road.
Right.
Right, but if we're talking about across the street, single-family dwellings across the street, and then you have multi-unit, college housing, somebody might complain that they don't want to see a party in the backyard every day. I don't know.
Why can't we just say instead of shall, privacy screen may be provided?
I think that's
on
reasonable.
Requirement by the planning commission,
Yeah.
and may can be a combination of tree, blah, blah, blah. And it gives us,
I think saying may doesn't require it, but it gives us discretion in a certain particular scenario to do so if we need it.
'cause I think there would be cases it would be nice, but.
Yes. Will be cases when it's not necessary.
Okay, so B6, change shall to may, make it discretionary to the planning commission. C, requirements for non-residential uses in residential or agricultural districts. You good on that? That does require screening for non-residential use abutting residential zoning. Ten four,
What, do we, when somebody does a landscape plan right now, do we certify that they are, what zone the plants are from and that they're free of pests and diseases, hardy in central Michigan? I mean, do we have a list of acceptable plants that we give people? I mean,
There's a list.
There is a
of
list.
Unacceptable plants.
right, right.
Oh, we have a list.
now. Sorry. I'm tired.
Almost done.
Yeah, okay.
Gotta go home and water my garden.
I mean, we have an expectation that a developer, if they put in something that is an Ohio hardiness zone and it's not Michigan and it dies, they're gonna have to replace their screening, right? I mean, so, but in
Yeah, that's
conformance to the standards of the American Association of Nurserymen, what about nursery women too?
I guess we don't want them going out and digging
I mean, I
Most
it
nurseries
just
aren't gonna
seems,
go, I got some great ash trees out back. Just for sale,
for now.
for now.
I also was not clear on the non-living plant material, which plastic and other non-living plant materials should not be considered acceptable to meeting the landscaping requirements of this ordinance. So, does that mean I can't put in rubber mulch?
You can't put in fake plants.
No. 'cause that's
No, I
not-
understand
Rubber
what the
mulch is
intent
not-
Put in a
is.
rubber
Rubber mulch
tree.
is not plant material, right? But I would consider like normal mulch.
Well, this falls under the non-living plant material. This is a non-living plant material
It's
section.
not a plant material. The rubber isn't a plant material though. Therefore, it was never living, nor is it non-living plant material.
Is mulch non-living plant material?
Mulch is non-living, but you said rubber mulch.
Right.
Mulch was, generally speaking, once living.
But wouldn't you?
Yes, so I would agree with mulch, but not rubber mulch. I thought you said rubber mulch.
No, that's what I'm asking, is, are we saying, I think the intent is to say, yeah, you can't put in a fake Christmas tree and say, this is my screening. However, does that mean we're also banning the use of rubber mulch or other landscaping accessories that are non-living?
So mulch is allowed under C.
So it says mulch. You should find-
Let's ask him to define what he means by plastic and other non-living plant. What is he?
That's what I mean, it's just not clear to me.
What's banned by that?
Right.
All right.
We getting too prescriptive.
Anything under C?
I don't have any more notes. Not mine.
I would, I would be interested to know where the list of undesirable plant materials is generated from, and make sure that that is actually, I mean, that's updated annually, and I don't know if there's a way to kind of keep that current, but I would be curious as to how extensive that list that's been provided actually is.
Pete, C3 evergreen trees, we're gonna have to change that 8 feet minimum to 6 feet if we,
Changed it.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
noted that, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that.
Well, see, and then it's got the 3 feet again.
We should bump shrubs up to 4 feet.
Thought it said 4 feet. in-
No, 4 feet is the existing ordinance.
Yeah,
He's
three,
proposing
that's
3.
consistent.
Yeah.
But it says
arguable.
4 feet over here, doesn't it? And then it says 3 feet over here.
Where?
Where does it say?
thought it was
On the shrubs, you mean?
Shrubs and
No, it
hedges.
said 3, our current ordinance says
Says
4.
4.
And so they
Oh,
said.
so we're going backwards?
Yeah,
Or,
but
yeah,
that's,
it's reducing it, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
we're not gonna enforce it anymore.
Okay.
Cities are doing that.
Okay, so
I
maybe
thought it said.
They got us.
clarify where the undesirable list came from.
Give it to the.
10.5, installation and maintenance.
Can't put up dead trees.
So I'm assuming when the seeding or sodding, it says 90 days after occupancy, I'm assuming the off-season planting requirements includes some latitude for seeding or sodding?
When it's winter.
So off-season planting requirements gives some latitude, like, so, okay, we built this in the winter, I have till spring to put some landscaping in. But the seeding or sodding says you must do it within 90 days after occupancy, but what if,
Or as soon as possible at the next growing season or something like that.
yeah, I just didn't know if E applied to C, and it seems like it kind of should, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So in C, or as specified under E,
Sure.
something like that. Other things on.
Seems like E should actually just be kind of like a subsection under C.
Well, but it would also be like perimeter landscaping too, B. And so a lot of the landscaping potentially could be hit by E, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like seeding or off-season planting requirements in addition to seeding or sodding, on and on. Yeah.
It should just essentially apply to everything.
Right.
We're good on 10.5?
Yeah.
10.6, treatment of existing plant material.
I think they should rip it out and put in new.
Anything on 10.7?
I just liked having 10.7 in here. It gives us some latitude to ease regulations where we deem necessary. I don't think we have that now, do we? We have a lot of discretion to waive much.
I just had one other small comment about the plant material specifications, 10.4C. There's nothing in there that addresses ornamental grasses. We have regular grass and sod, but nothing addresses ornamental grasses. I don't know if it needs to be, but they're used heavily in commercial and residential landscaping, so if it's,
Where's that at?
and
The list of plant material
list of plant,
specifications?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Did you get that?
Which section?
The
It's
long
only back-
list of
it's
different,
like one or two
back a
pages
page
back.
or two, the
Plant
long
material
list of
specifications.
different,
Yeah, there's nothing for ornamental, there's trees, but not
plant material
ornamental grasses.
specifications,
Yep, what do you want?
ornamental
Just-
grasses.
Ornamental grasses?
Wondering if we should list anything in there for it at all.
And the way I interpreted this section, 1 through 9, this wasn't the exhaustive list. There's a prohibited list below that. This is, if you use shade trees, they must be blah. So, I mean, I guess I could say you can use ornamental grasses, and we didn't provide regulations on how they should be used if they are. And maybe we need to, but
Well, I know
that's
that.
how I kind of looked at this.
I mean, I have ornamental grasses at my own house that are 12 to 14 feet tall, and then you have some that are 2 feet tall, or 4 feet, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So should there be any, I don't know, they're used heavily, so I didn't know if we should address it.
I have some too, and they're hard to keep control over.
Well, some of them
I consider it
actually-
kind of now that I have it, I'm sort of
Yeah.
like,
Some of
Does
them
it
are
fall
actually
under
considered undesirable, because they can
undesirable,
spread, yeah.
Do not plant them near pool, because they like to throw seed.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Your neighbor did that?
Yeah. My wife did.
All right.
One
so-
last, there was one last thing I did just want to ask you guys about. It was going back to the parking, is the size of the parking. Our current zoning states that an off-street parking space has to be at least 180 square feet, minimum of 9 feet in width. And what we have proposed here in the new is if it's a 76 to 90 degree parking, the width is still 9 feet, but the depth is 18 and a half feet, which would give you less than 180 square feet. And if
Bless you.
it's up to, for example, up to 45 degree angled parking, 8.5 feet wide instead of 9, and only 16.6 depth. So in both cases, you're going to be having not the 180 square feet that we currently have, and in some cases, half a foot less in width than 9 feet. And so just in consideration for, people with larger vehicles, I guess, what do you guys feel about that?
I'd like to have a developer give us their opinion. Tell us what they can fit.
Just in regards to
I need
landscaping,
all night.
interior landscaping,
Huh?
just regarding the interior
No, this is going back to the
Parking
parking
spaces, the
spaces.
Yeah,
width.
regarding the parking spaces?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as far as the actual size.
Yeah, I'm gonna check the city ordinance, because we've got a couple projects that we did, and, I mean, I just did the math on one of our Central Square where Tim Hortons and all that is, there's like 300 parking spaces, and by doing the math, we'd have to add 7,800 square feet of landscaping somewhere, or allow for it. And I did the math, divide it by like 300, that means there's 26 of these curb islands that would have to be in somewhere. I mean, we've got like maybe 10 curb islands. And I don't know how many, there's probably 100 plants. So to me, it seems excessive, but I need to do some more digging.
The size of the parking space is what we're
As far as the
saying.
size of the parking
9 by
space,
20.
I don't think,
Oh, I don't know, they're like,
Why would,
what's normal size?
9 by 20.
I don't think,
Yeah, no, I think we got like 9 by 18s.
I don't think the size of cars in Michigan are gonna get smaller anytime soon.
why would the angled parking only have to be 8.5 feet wide and 90-degree parking
Easy to park in.
be 9 feet wide?
Yeah.
I need the 9 foot. I just keep it at 9.
I like the
Just
wider
saying.
parking. Fewer dings
I don't want
in
somebody
your
to hit
car
my
from
door,
somebody
yeah.
else.
Well, just the problem you run into is when there's a minimum requirement. So sometimes you have to shrink them to be able to
Yeah.
get enough parking spaces on there to get your plan approved.
Right.
So,
Oh,
I mean, obviously, we'd ideally like to do, 10 foot and
Mhm.
make them nice and big so but if it doesn't meet the minimum, then it won't get approved.
Yeah. Well, those minimums sometimes seem like overkill a little bit, but.
Well, the city eliminated all minimums, so you can have a project with 0 parking if you'd like.
Well, that's because everybody's gonna be walking and riding
I
bicycles.
know
right?
that's what Brian's going for, so we just lost him to the city.
Okay. Anything else?
It's like walk to Dunkin' Donuts. I'm okay.
All right, so very briefly then, we've finished that. Can you tell us again the date? Is it October 14th?
October 4th.
October 4th?
Yep.
All right.
And
What
so-
day of the week is that?
That's a Thursday.
Okay,
So
so-
we'll attempt to get through sections 11 through
It
15.
should be October 3rd?
October 3rd, I hope.
3rd.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. 3rd,
I'm gonna
yeah,
look
it's
at
the
my phone.
Thursday.
Okay. So Thursday, October 3rd, 6 o'clock
Yep.
here.
Sections, the rest of the sections.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we'll attempt to get through 11 through 15. Chris will be there, and, if we're not able to get through it, then we'll, maybe I can move some onto the October regular meeting, but, other than that, try to schedule another special meeting, just with ourselves.
Okay, and that's already been sent out, and that room has been reserved for that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll move on to extended public comments, or if there's anybody who'd like to offer a public comment on anything, they're invited to do so at this time. Just give us your name and address for the minutes, limit your comments to 5 minutes. Extended public comments open at 9:19. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that back up. Final board comment, any comments from board members?
I just had a question for Commissioner Cody. Is the sewer and water on, isn't there a special meeting for you guys coming up? The 20-something?
24th, I think. Hold on, let me double check. 24th at 6. So 6 to 7:30. It's a work session, water work session.
Okay, anything else?
I'd like to comment, I think we did a good job having the downs-put sidewalk in there.
It looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks
It looks
good.
awesome.
It's impossible
It
to.
does.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
The drive-through is a nightmare, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh my
I believe the
goodness.
sidewalk, it's.
I think
if the drive
So I'm glad we
It's
stuck with it.
Not
I
because of
agree.
the sidewalk or
No,
anything.
no, the sidewalks are good.
Yeah, looks really good.
My daughter works just north of there, and every day she goes by, she goes, "It looks so good over there."
And they
We-
said it couldn't be done.
We call it the impossible sidewalk in my house.
Is that right?
The guys that work at JXC Peterbilt walk down the sidewalk, cross the road,
Yeah.
Yeah.
down, and they come back.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything else? Thank you all. We're adjourned.